Ruchika Singh, and I teach history in Indraprasth College for Women. My area of specialization is modern Indian history, and it gives me immense pleasure and opportunity to discuss with you the agrarian changes in the colonial India. In order to understand this theme, we would be more focusing on land revenue system in British India. So now what we are going to do is we are going to begin with the permanent, you can say, settlement, the very first arrangement that they came up with. The moment we are even talking about, you can say, the permanent settlement, we can say that this settlement was introduced in Bengal and Bihar in 1793 by Lord Cornwallis, and it was fixed that the land rights of the members in perpetuity without any provision for fixed rent or occupancy right for actual cultivators. So the moment we are even talking about, it's primarily giving us, you can say, the basic information that the very first arrangement was actually, you can say, introduced by Lord Cornwallis, and it was basically talking about how the land rights are going to be fixed, and along with that, it was also thought about that provisions are going to be, you can say, meant up in order to ensure that the rent is fixed, and along with that the occupancy rights for actual cultivators is also going to be thought about. Now under this system, the intermediaries collected land revenue from the farmers who were known as the jamidars. Now there are two things that we really have to put in our mind is that we have to talk about, you can say, the intermediaries, and who were like being popularly, you can say, known and you can say identified as the jamidars. Now this system was mostly, you can say, prevalent there in West Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, UP, Andhra Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. Now with this, you can say, set of information, we can simply see that this arrangement was at least on the part of the British administrators a well thought, you can say, arrangement. They thought about that initially because there was no, you can say, provision for the fixed rent. That was like a challenge that actually made the previous, you can say, empire builders to, you can say, to solve their problems, and that could be only sorted up if they are going to fix it. And the areas, the moment we are going to go through the areas that are going to be covered under this system, also speaks a lot about that these areas were strategically located. They do have a very specific, you can say, strategic location to talk about, and it was actually done with a much more of, you can say, strategic planning. But the question that again that is going to come up over here is that even though they thought about that if they are going to bring up, you can say, fixed, you can say, rent, probably they would be able to address the problems. Now according to the permanent land revenue settlement, the jamidars were recognized as the permanent owners of the land. Now the moment we are even talking about them as the permanent owners of the land, it was thought about, it was a well, you can say, thought that they really considered up that if jamidars, or you can say the ones who were actually holding up the you can say some sort of, you can say, authority, they are going to be given, you can say, the property right, they are going to be given, you can say, a hereditary, you can say, ownership of the land, then they will definitely try to, you can say, improve the condition of the cultivators, and along with that it's also going to help you can say enhance the revenue, because the requisite demands of the cultivators is going to be considered. And as a part of the, you can say, this entire, you can say, planning and this settlement, it was thought about that they thought about that they are going to instruct them to pay 89% of the annual revenue to the state, and were allowed to enjoy 11% of the revenue as their share or commission. Now, it speaks a lot about that it was not a random choice that they were making. It was a well thought, a strategic thought they really thought about, that at least a part is going to remain with them as a part of their share or commission, so that they are going to feel rewarded about that. It's not that they are putting their hard work into it and they are actually collecting the revenue, but then as a part of the revenue, you can say reward, the share is going to help them to continue this activity, to continue this task. Now, as we really move forward with, we are going to take into account, you can say few, you can say classic, you can say examples, or for that matter, we are going to take into account specific, you can say areas, and we will try to understand how the, you can say, this arrangement of permanent settlement was actually enriching them, uprising them, or it was something that was not, you can say, as promising as it has been otherwise thought about. So in regard to that, we are going to take few regions in specific to understand that. Now, as it has been said, when we were having a discussion on it, we just talked about the areas who were primarily chosen where this settlement or where this system is going to be executed. It was as a part of the series of the execution, we can see that it was later extended to Orissa, northern districts of Madras and district of Varanasi as well. In parts of central India and Awadh, the British introduced a temporary jamidari settlement, under which the jamidars were made owners of land, but the revenue they had to pay was revised periodically. Now, there is like one thing that we have to, you can say, keep in our mind is that when they came up with the permanent settlement, it was not done, you can say, all of a sudden. They have also tried to, you can say, make it more, you can say, stabilized, and in order to stabilize it, they came up with the, you can say, alternate, you can say, possible ways also through which they are going to exercise it. And as a part of that, we can see that they came up with the, you can say, a temporary jamidari settlement that they really thought about. There were several issues that were faced by the cultivators, jamidars, as well as by the company in this system. Now, obviously, we all know that whenever a new system is actually put into, you can say, force, there are always apprehensions about it. And even though when we are actually thinking of doing amendable changes in something that was already there in the existence, then also apprehensions are not going to go away, because obviously the expectations as well as, you can say, the variables within which that system is going to work is something that is going to bring, you can say, a major concern. It's going to be a major concern for everyone who is actually dependent on that, or is in a way, you can say, directly or indirectly associated with. So obviously, when this actually system was actually put in, it was something that is going to come up. So obviously, it's going to affect, you can say, the cultivators who are going to cultivate it, jamidars who are going to, you can say, who are going to work as, you can say, or who are going to be seen as the revenue collectors, and even for the company also, because again, this was something that they have to really deal with. So their stakes were also therein, and they have to, you can say, build up an image also that they really want to justify upon. So if they really want to justify their position, they have to take into consideration all of that. Now, in case of villages, the cultivators, you can say, found this system oppressive and exploitative, as they had to pay very high rent to the jamidars. while their rights on the land were quite insecure. The cultivators often had to take loan to pay the rents, because if they failed to pay the rent, they would be evicted from the land. So it speaks a lot about that the cultivators have to bear a lot of like things that were otherwise not expected, and they thought about it's not going to happen to them, but it has to be like taken into consideration. And especially when the you can say when Britishers actually came up with the very high taxation, you can say, policy, obviously it's going to be oppressive, it's going to be exploitative also, because now jamidars are going to force the cultivators to, you can say, produce more, to give them more revenue, to give them more tax. Now obviously these knave, you can say, cultivator, from where they are going to pay the high tax? That's one concern. Now, even though one really thinks about that these concerns could be sidelined, but I think the more we are going to get engaged ourselves with the concerns, we can not actually, you can say, rule out, you can say, the requisite, you can say, demands of the cultivators. So now in order to, you can say, meet up, they have to take loan also. And because they were not in a position to pay the rents, they were not in a position to pay the loan as well. And the moment they fail to pay the rent, they would be evicted from the land. Now this was like too much, you can say, for the cultivators. And obviously that speaks about, you can say, the knave, you can say, position and the condition of the cultivators also. Now, this system was a problem for jamidars as well. The revenue had been fixed so high that the jamidars found it difficult to pay. Those who failed to pay the revenue lost their jamidari. And the jamidars were not interested in improving the land conditions. As long as they could give out the land and get rent, they preferred it. So it speaks on behalf of the jamidars also that this system was a problem. Um, and until and unless this problem is not going to be sorted out, it's not going to give them the desired results also. Now it was like thought about, if they are going to come up with the, you can say, the fixed revenue, they can always ask the, you can say, the revenue collectors, or you can say the jamidars, to actually pay them accordingly. But then the revenue that was fixed was too high to be paid by the jamidars. It was not only difficult for the jamidars to, you can say, pay, it was in, you can say, correspondence, very much, you can say, a difficult task for the cultivators also to pay those taxes. So it was something that is going to affect the cultivator and the, you can say, the revenue collector as well. Now the jamidars were not interested. That really speaks a lot about that. That was very much visible why they were not taking so much of interest in improving the condition of the land. Now it has been said that initially they thought about, if revenue is going to be fixed, then obviously jamidars would be in a position to actually enhance the, you can say, the revenue. And this would definitely make them to actually look into the demands and the, you can say, the requisite demands of the peasants as well. So it was thought about that jamidars are going to take into consideration the demands of the peasants, so it's going to improve the condition of the peasants, that in the longer run peasants are going to benefit from that. And obviously when peasants are going to be benefited, then obviously it's going to improve the land conditions also, so they would be able to pay those, you can say, high taxes. Now that was something that they really thought about, and they thought that in the longer run they would be able to sustain it. Now the irony was that nothing of that sort happened. Instead, it actually made them realize that this arrangement with which they have come up really needs some sort of, you can say, realistic, you can say, comprehension to be done on that. Now it was like thought about that by the first decade of the 19th century, The cultivation slowly expanded and prices rose in the market, although this meant an increase in the income of jamidars. It was no gain for the company since it could not increase a revenue demand that had been settled permanently. So we can see that the cultivation slowly they thought about that they would be able to expand the cultivation, they would be able to, you can say, enhance the prices there in the market, and with that there is going to be an increase there in the income of the jamidars also. But then nothing of that sort actually happened there in the, you can say, as far as the, you can say, the moment you're going to see the pyramid, I'm sure you can seriously think and you can easily make it out as a part of the observation that peasants there in the town don't have much to say on it. And the moment we are even talking about the jamidars, even though they were acting as the intermediaries, do have a lot of, you can say, responsibilities to bear. And these responsibilities were just not about, you can say, maintaining the land. It was also about how they are going to enhance the, you can say, the revenue. That was one prime concern. And it was thought about that if Jamidar's income is going to be increased, there is going to be an increase there in the income of the Jamidar, then obviously it's going to benefit the peasants and it's going to serve the purpose of the British government also. But as we just a moment before we discussed, we can easily see that there were like plenty of, you can say, lacunas. There were plenty of, you can say, problems that were existing in that very system that made that system appear a more, you can say, faulty to begin with. Now, after having a brief, you can say a very overview, you can say, description about the historical circumstances and the condition within which this system was actually introduced up. It would be a more, you can say, a satiable thought to talk about, you can say, the salient features of the permanent settlement, or for that matter we can even call it as the, you can say, the the basic, you can say, characteristics of the permanent land revenue settlement. So now what we are going to do is we are going to quickly, you can say, discuss these features, and after discussing these features we will try to look at the, you can say, the demerits and the merits simultaneously. What was this system offering in, and to what you can say point this system was actually a problematic issue to begin with. So now we are going to continue with the salient features of the permanent settlement. As it has been said that Jamidars were recognized as the hereditary, you can say, owner of the land, and they received the right of inheritance. Now that Jamidars need to be given some sort of, you can say, the security, and that security is going to come up if they are going to be made the hereditary owners of the land, that they do have, you can say, the proprietary right over the land. They are the owners, and they are going to receive the right of inheritance also as part of, you can say, the acknowledgement. Landlords were given, you can say, a choice to exercise upon, that they can sell or, you can say, transfer the land as per the wishes. It was actually approached that way, that the jamidars are going to be thought about as the ones who are going to, you can say, provide, you can say, some sort of, you can say, things that are going to help them to sustain up. So they do have the choice to, you can say, sell or, you can say, transfer the land as and when they really fell by. The landlord's property remained as long as they were able to pay, you can say, certain amount to the government on these specified, you can say, days. If they fail to pay, their rights would be taken away and the land will be auctioned. Now, this is something that was a problematic issue. that it's fine that one should actually give them a sort of, you can say, acknowledgement by you can say proclaiming them as the hereditary, you can say, owner of the land. And in order to, you can say, make it like more, you can say, approachable and happening, it would be more wiser to look at it from the perspective that they do have a choice to exercise on. But along with that, there was a burden that they really have to bore up. That is, if they fail to, you can say, pay the certain amount that has been fixed by the government on that, you can say, specified day, their rights would be taken away and the land will be auctioned. It means that they have to live under the mercy of the British government. And it's going to be a very merciless thing that is going to be done to them, that not only their right is going to be taken away, but their land which has been otherwise, you can say, considered as part of their, you can say, private property, is also going to be auctioned. So there was like too much at the stake that these jamidars have to actually go through, and that also really speaks about why they were not actually interested investing there in the land also. Now, as a part of, you can say, the discussion, we can see that there was a fixed amount that was paid to the landlords. It was decided that it would not increase in the future. So it was said that even though they have to pay high, you can say, revenue, but then this is going to be done on the permanent basis. It means it's not that government is going to, you can say, it's going to increase over the time. Now the fixed amount was 10 by 11 of revenue to the Britishers and 1 by 11 of revenue to Jamidars. This tax rate was much higher compared in England. The Jamidars also had to give the tenant a patent, you can say, describing the land given to him and the rent that the Jamidar had to pay. Now we can see that the responsibility of looking after the peasants actually fell on the shoulder of the Indian landlords. And that was a very big responsibility there on their shoulder. Because of the permanent nature of the arrangement, everyone had a sense of security. The company knew how much profit it was making. The owner was also assured of the amount. After all, the farmers also relied on their property instead of a hoof and knew how much rent they would pay. Thank you.